every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
Emmy Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIYTV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Put Your Family First podcast. It's the third Monday. And so in the building is Mana Hill. She's doing her thing. Today's subject also in the building is Monique and Heather.
Yeah.
Right? Today's conversation is a serious conversation. I hope you are prepared to learn some new information as we take a dive into suicide for seniors. Please, as you know, suicide is off the charts. We ourselves at Emmy do a Smash Suicide campaign, recognizing, bringing awareness that boys 5 to 11 are number one. We know that suicides impact men across the spectrum. We also know that globally, suicide has exceeded 2 million people a year. We also know that in China, women now lead the category in suicide, which is the only nation where women lead in suicide. So we understand that suicide is a very impactful process. It's something that we all should be aware of, skill set wise and all. We know that suicide impacts the economy of homes. Suicide impacts the trauma that affects the children. We know suicide impacts cognitive behavior in children. We know that suicide impacts spouses, husbands, and family, because sometimes when someone dies by suicide, we don't know how to handle it. So mental health is real. And whenever you have an episode or something like this, you should seek mental health assistance. For those of you out there, before this conversation gets started, if you find yourself in any way unease, you can just pick up your phone and dial 988. And there will be some resources there for you and all. So, take a deep breath, relax, and understand today you will be learning some new information, because all people are harmed by this. With that being said, Mana.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you guys doing today?
We're great.
Heather?
Yes.
Monique?
Great.
Good. So I think we should jump right in it. Okay. For me, this is a serious thing, I guess, for us, because we discovered in 2018 what was happening about boys. But I have to say, I have very little information about suicide in seniors. And I'm glad that you are here to lead us in this conversation.
So I'm going to first read a little poem, and then we'll go into our discussion. So it's a different kind of bereavement. We've bereaved by suicide, how awful people say. I lost my mom to cancer, or my granddad passed away. My darling son went off to war. A bullet took his life. A motorcycle killed my girl. The shock near killed my wife. So why is grief different? Why can't we just pull through? We mourn our loved ones just as much as we have burdens too. Your loved one didn't want to go if they had a voice, but we are haunted by the thought that your loved one had a choice. You can't imagine what it's like to be where we've been. For us, it is the shock. For first, the scene. The people is burned into their minds. They can't be erased. It haunts us still at the time of unburden any place. We would have to change the past, but in the most we could, but we're wrecked our heavy guilt of the things that we should. We should have been there earlier. We should have known in our minds. We should have sought professional help. We should have been there in one way or another, in some kind. We should have phoned more often. We should have understood. We should have been coming. We should have did what we could. But how could it be different? We're coping best way we can. We rarely given a peace of mind. Please understand. Pretty deep.
Pretty deep.
Pretty deep. So suicide is a leading mortality in the United States, with adjusted age rate of 14.1 deaths, 100,000 population in 2021. Older adults have to be a tender rate of suicide, although they represent a lower percentage in the number of suicides. Male older adults, 55 and older, have 29.6 deaths per 100,000. For females, it's 6.1%. It has to do with so many different things. So there's warning signs. There's depression. There's prior suicide attempts. They feel hopeless. Their lack of interest in their future plans. They don't feel like there's any future. Medical conditions limit their abilities and life expectancy. There's social isolation and cognitive impairment. Families discord or losses. They feel like they've lost of self. They've lost themselves. They can't do anything more for themselves. Inflexibility, difficult making decisions. They have difficulty adapting to change. Access to lethal weapons, firearms. Daring to take the risk for behavior. Sudden personality changes. Alcohol to medicate or misuse of drugs. Verbal suicide. You'd be better off without me. Giving away their possessions. Firearms is a leading death for older adult males, 55 and older. Firearm rate has increased with the age. Men 55 to 64 years old have the lowest rate of deaths per 100,000, followed by 65 to 74 age, ages 75 to 84 years of age, and 85 and older. Then poisoning becomes a big deal. They poison themselves by taking a bottle of pills for 85 years and older. Suffocation rates are high among older adults, ages 75 to 84 years of age. Among men 55 and older, firearms and suicide are higher times likely than the leading mechanisms of suffocation and poisoning. So the guns, the firearms, they can take themselves out very quickly, easily. Among women, the highest rate of firearms is poisoning and suffocation. Among women 55 and older, the rates of firearms and poisoning are related to suicides in that similar age group. So there's so many risk factors with being an older adult. Why would you think an older adult would hurt themselves? There's a loss of function, cognition, peer groups, financial stability, and well-being. There's also mental illness. 46% of seniors who commit suicide have some kind of mental illness. Medical concerns. With aging comes health issues. With medical concerns, the decline in physical health, whether there's a loss of an organ or a risk factor. People with cognitive impairment or dementia are at greater risk of attempting to hurt themselves. People with dementia are twice likely to die by suicide. And multiple losses, meaning loss of their self, their parents, maybe their child, loss of a home, their bodies, different things that are going on, the fear of aging, the loss of a spouse can add a lot of stress to them. Couples who've lived together their entire lives, it's oftentimes that they'll want to hurt themselves because they want to go with their loved one. Financial difficulties. Money troubles and food instability can contribute to depression and anxiety and cause one to want to hurt themselves. Lots of financial added-ons, not being able to afford to live, and living in loneliness and isolation. The loneliness is a buzzword. Think about loneliness. Nobody comes to see you. Nobody stops by. Nobody spends any time with you anymore. Nobody calls you. Like Kelvin said before, check in on your loved themselves at home.
Yeah, we're writing, that's my article in the July magazine. It's about that, about understanding the check on. We spend our lifetime taking from men and have a high expectation from men. And then when we get to a certain stage or an age, it becomes these prescriptions for us. And everybody wants to tell us who we are and what we look like and what we should do and how we should do it. And they're not men. Yeah. And we have an idea to understand that process because we understand we're builders. We do things different. And it's very hard for the society to understand that they cannot dictate to men exactly what they think men should do because men kind of got an idea. Things like that. And we can't do these things. It's very, very difficult for us to see our existence as men while being attacked and want from. Mm-hmm. And we have very little expectation from people to give back to us. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of pressure. You've probably heard your husband say 1,000,000 times, I'm straight.
All the time.
Right? And in that process, what we're saying to men and seniors and older men, 55 and up, what we're saying is, no, you don't. And sometimes it's daunting for us as men, which is why we tell boys and we tell men, cut your TV off. It's important, especially for me, black males, and right. It's very important because you're absent. It's society pulls you out of place, and it's hard to see yourself. So you have to find things to really see yourself. And for seniors, you can only understand that it's magnified. So a guy is 50. Not really, if they're healthy, they're not really watching and much TV. They try to look at old television shows, how they were growing up, but it's very difficult to be a man. And in this society, there's something always wanted. So he can't necessarily have wants. He has to get his own wants and desires, and that's tough. And so that's part of what is being asked of men, these seniors. Once all of that is going away, it's a great story. Paul Elam told the story about his uncle. His uncle was laying in the bed on his birthday party. And while he was laying in the bed on his birthday party, it's this big party going on. He's laying in the bed, and he goes in and talks to his uncle. And he tells his uncle, hey, come on, get up. It's your birthday. We're here to celebrate it. And he said, don't nobody give a about me. He said, this party is for them. They the one, they put it on. They never asked me at all. And he said, he thought about that, got on the road, and then he got the call. And he pulled over on the road, and he mapped out this plan, all right, called A Voice for Men. And he created this process. We would get together and had a men's issue conference in 2014. America, right here in the city of Detroit. And so that, what you're saying and what's happening to seniors is happening to men of all ages.
So another thing is men lose their independence. So when they lose their independence, they're used to driving everyone. They're used to taking everyone everywhere. They're taking care of the house. They're taking care of the car. They're taking care of the home. They're independent, and then all of a sudden they become not independent anymore. They're relying on somebody to take care of them. And it's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Once they're not, they can't. I've lost my independence. I can't drive anymore. I got to depend on somebody. The wife has to do it all.
Yeah.
She can't manage it all. Maybe she's not managed it all. He's managed it all their whole lives, their whole career, their whole marriage.
Yeah.
Now she has to do it, and she's angry and she's bitter because he can't do it anymore. So it's a big deal.
That makes me think about my dad. I got lots of dad stories with me. But my dad, one of the signs, one of the signs that I noticed, one, he said that he was ready to go. That was one. And secondly, he said that all of his peers, his best friends, his older brother, like all of these people who were important to his life had passed on. And who was left was my mom. And he said, I know you kids will always take care of your mom, so I'm not worried about her. He said, yeah, I miss her. He said, but I'm not worried about her. So, I'm ready whenever, God is ready to take me. And I thought that was really odd. And so, but at that time, he was no longer driving. He was no longer being the provider in the way that he had been all of his life and all of our lives. And he's like, you kids are grown. You have your own lives. You guys are, you're doing what we have asked you to do. And I heard him say that, and I asked if he wanted to see somebody. He said, sure, I'll talk to somebody. And so he was open, he was willing. So he would go to counseling and therapy sessions. And he said, I'm just sharing what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. He said, and it feels good to do that and not feel like you're being judged. Or he said, I'm not trying to take my own life. He said, but I am ready. He said, I am ready. He said, I don't want to take any more pills. So, but some of the things that he was talking about doing was still suicidal ideation. Like if you need medication to help you with certain conditions and you no longer to do that. My dad was on oxygen. And so he kept pushing the envelope with the oxygen. Like he would take it off and try to go to the bathroom. We spent lots of time in ER from falls because he was thinking that he could go without it, or he could test how long he could hold his breath and things like that. But it was risky, very risky behaviors that started to emerge. And because of so many falls and because of so much lack of oxygen, it did shift his mind. And it shifted his mindset as well. So he wasn't as coherent. He wasn't as aware. I want to say aware as he could be. And so as he moved into his final days, that was a big part of his shift. He not that he didn't care about how other people felt about his shift, but he was like, oh, I'm all right. Whatever way this goes, I'm all right. But he did start to do more at-risk behaviors. Yeah.
He was tired.
Yeah.
And he had thought it out. He knew in his own mind what his journey would be. And we never know what he really thought. There might have been something in there. We don't know. I mean, you never know what these gentlemen are thinking, or
because you're talking very little value. The one story I always bring up was at 60 some years old, Colonel Sanders launched Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
We get to a certain point because after you pass a certain age, you got a philosophy, and the philosophy is, again, the reason why I harp on male and fatherhood value is because society don't know the value. We have a very basic process, and just as much as we're asking the skill sets of women, the skill set of a man, it's always seems small. And because we process different, for a man to be in that position, and these are healthy men, like my uncles and grandfathers, like they're thriving, right? Because they're doing things that they want to do, right? And that's a process for male freedom. I am going to do some things that I want to do, where it's not necessarily demanded of them. So it's very difficult. You see a lot of men in that position because they don't have a certain skill set. All they ever did, and we heard a story yesterday, all they did, they talked about this man went to work every day.
And his work was his life value.
And his work was
and
his
you
value.
know what? And that's something that when he lost that, he loses independence. And then think about like whatever his career set was. If he was a doctor, so he should be called a doctor until the end of his life. And
Right.
He should be respected and ask him questions. If he was a teacher, tell us about what you taught. Be able to share those values. If you worked on a line or a factory, share what was interesting about that factory. Tell us about, share about how it is to make that car. Keeping those values, those job sets, and how important it is to that person, because it doesn't ever go away. That's a part of that person their whole life, whatever they did. Like you said, he worked. That was a part of his job. He went to work every day. So, and then of course, getting older and not being able to go to work every day, he would feel like he was a burden, or like it was a problem, or he was in pain, and sometimes they'll become depressed because of that. And not to stereotype, but older white male are especially at high risk because they count for 70% of all suicides in 2020. The white male over 65 are at greater risk due to. They say they've been married for 40 years and they were head of the whole household, and the wife dies, and then they're alone, and then it's a complication with being alone and being being used to that wife taking care of them. Suicide warning risk for older adults. If you know that somebody, you might know that somebody might be at risk. Ask them directly. Say, have you ever thought about that? Or. Is there a concern? Why do you feel that way? Ask them, and it's okay to ask. There's so many so many warning signs. Depression, as you know, you might think of depression as sadness or weariness, but it's also withdrawing and being away from everyone. And not, if you haven't heard from your older adult males or your females, contact them. Social withdrawal is a lack of interest, lack of being with people and friendships. They'll say, I just don't want to go anymore. I just don't feel like I feel up to it. Clients, if they don't want to take their medications. No, I don't want to take those medications. I'm going to skip those doctor's appointments. I don't need to take care of myself anymore. Why? Giving away their belongings, that's a big deal. Somebody starts giving away their things that mean so much to them. Maybe they're preparing for, maybe a suicide. Changes in appearance or not taking care of themselves, not taking a shower, not brushing their teeth, washing their face, looking the way they used to look. And maybe they cared about their appearance, but they don't care anymore. Maybe they're physical and emotional pain. They feel like they're a burden to their loved ones.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that burden to the loved ones. I don't want my child to have to take care of me.
Right.
Or I don't want to go to this nursing home because they're not going to be good to me.
Yeah.
But my kid's got all these things to do, or my wife's got all these things to do, and she just wants me out of the house. I'm falling left and right, and she wants me out of the house. But maybe I'm a problem or a burden. And then feeling really hopeless. Like, what can I do? There's just, I'm a major burden. Or feeling guilt or shame. They're ashamed of, I didn't prepare well, I didn't save enough money, or I didn't provide well for my family, and here I am, a burden for them to have to take care of me.
That hits us.
It does.
I'm hit with that on a regular. Like, I go through a process, and I'm hit with that on a regular.
In our older adult population now, it's changing because now the baby boomers are coming in, they haven't planned as well. or our generation hasn't planned as well. The ones that were in the past, they had more finances, they had retirement, many of them had pensions. You'll see the seniors of the future not having all that and not having that money or that backup.
All right, we're going to go to a commercial. When you come back, I'll be gone.
Okay.
Are you an indie podcast or content creator looking to reach a wider audience? Look no further. Introducing Podcastic, the ultimate podcast network designed exclusively for indie creators like you. At Podcastic, we believe in the power of unique voices and fresh perspectives. We're here to amplify your passion and creativity, connecting you with the growing community of engaged listeners who crave original content. Podcastic is more than just a platform. It's a support system built for indie podcasters, offering a range of resources to help you succeed. From tailored promotional campaigns to professional production assistance, we're here to help you shine. Our intuitive platform makes it easy for you to be seen and heard. We do all the heavy lifting for you. You just show up and create. Plus, with our advanced analytics, you'll gain valuable insights into your audience's preferences, allowing you to refine your content and grow your fan base. Ignite your passion, expand your reach, and thrive with podcasting. Visit our website at www.podcasticlife.com to get started. Podcastic, the home for indie podcasts and content creators.
Wow. I do love that podcast commercial. It's so enthusiastic. It shows you the possibilities of what hosting your own podcast and having your own voice can do. And we are back with our resident expert, Monahil Hansen, who is giving us some deeper insight into suicide with our seniors and elders. And we are really grateful for her sharing our third week sessions every month, because she brings such value. She brings such inspiration. I love that she starts us with a poem to really center us. That's a big deal to me, so that we are centered and on the same page for the conversations that we're going to have. Today it's really a sobering conversation. When you think about our older adults and you think about elders, and when you're in that range already, it's a sobering thought. You're thinking about, your children and grandchildren, like grandchildren in this 50, I'd say between 55, 60 age range is, you get to think about grandchildren. And what about those in this age group who don't have grandchildren? I have a friend that she's in this peer group as well, and we talk a lot about how she is often depressed about she's not married, she doesn't have any children, she has one family member that is surviving, her immediate family member that is surviving, and she talks often about how the losses that have come before have been impacting her. And so when you hear somebody talking like that, Mana, what kind of advice or what kinds of supports can you offer them?
So, of course, when you've lost somebody, it's a big deal, and you feel like you're end of there's nothing left of you. But there's so many things. You have to focus on even the small little things that we do. Even, if you get up the day and you go for a walk, or you get up and you take your dog out. It's little steps, baby steps. Getting into the community and maybe volunteering, or looking for something that gives you purpose. Purpose is so important. Everybody needs a purpose. Everybody needs something that they feel good about. Meeting new people and getting out and socializing with others, and maybe joining a specific group that might you might be able to share. There's different groups that people get involved in.
It was when you mentioned pet care. That's another way to extend your family. And just, maybe something different. Maybe it's not a traditional pet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bird. Maybe it's an iguana. Maybe it's something different that another way that you can build a bond.
Something.
But I do love that people who do have pets, especially dogs, they have the dog parks and places that you can, that are pet friendly, that you can actually take your pets with you, and a companion. I know there are a lot of companion programs too, where you can adopt, a dog or a cat. I'm not sure about other animals other than those, but the companion programs often allow you to help raise or support another animal as they help to comfort you.
And that dog is something that they can hug and hold, and they're with them during times when you're by yourself and when you're lonely. They might sit with you or sleep with you or lay with you, or, they're there with you when nobody else is with you. So they're like your best friend. I know when I had COVID, I was by myself. That was at the very beginning. And I was by myself for about 3 months.
Oh, wow.
So nobody was at my home. I mean, my son couldn't come home because I had COVID.
Right.
My husband couldn't come home. He had a 91-year-old, well, she's 96 now, but he had a 91-year-old mother. He couldn't come home because he could give it to her.
Right.
So I was by myself, and I had a little dog, and my little dog was with me all the time. He just would, everywhere I'd go, I'd be like, come on, let's get in the car and let's go for a ride. You and I can go through a drive-through and I was getting over COVID, but I was still testing that I had it.
Right.
So I would take the dog with me and we'd go out for a ride. Let's go to the drive-through.
Yeah.
My companion.
Awesome. Yeah. I like that idea. Yeah. So I do want to talk a little bit more about how families can support. And keeping in mind that when we're talking about older adults, but we're also talking about those starting at age 55.
It's really important, as Kelvin said, you really need to check on your loved ones, even if it's a phone call or a text. Make sure that they're doing okay. Just check on them. How's it going? Just stopping by maybe. Just checking to see that they're okay. And then, if they're not, then, giving them recommendations. I know sometimes family members will say, I'm a burden. I don't want to be a burden. But really say, oh, no, I just want to come over and spend time with you. Make a point of spending time with your friend, your family, or your friends, knowing that they're okay. If not, at least calling them or texting them or social media or whatever you can do to talk to them. They really need to be checked on. And then if you're not hearing from them, you can do a wellness check. You know about wellness checks? If you've called them and you can't get a hold of them and you've done everything and, well, wow, I haven't heard from them in a long time, you can have the police do a wellness check. And they can check in the ambulance. They can check on the person because you just never know. It's so important for them to be, maybe they need clergy. Maybe they need a pastor, or maybe they need somebody to talk to, or maybe they need a friend, or, like you said, even at a younger age if you don't hear of them much. But it's important to keep in touch with your family and friends on a regular basis.
Yes.
Whether they want you to or not. Sometimes you have to just be pushy.
Right.
Well, my dad doesn't want me to. Okay, we'll still stop by.
Right.
Hey, Dad,
Drop
I brought
in.
you these donuts. Maybe Dad wants a tea or a coffee. Then you'll know if his house looks dishandled, a mess. It's a mess, and he's not taking care of himself, and he's not clean, or if he's having incontinence issues, or if he's not eating, or you can see in his refrigerator, has he been to the grocery store, or is he sad, or what's going on with him? That's right. The checking up is so important, and if you don't feel comfortable doing it by yourself, have somebody else go with you.
Absolutely.
Because if not, it could be too late. If you don't do something about it, it could be too late.
Do you think you mentioned a couple of things to watch for around the house? What other things do you think are kind of telltale signs that something is, some additional support may be needed? And it's not just, okay, I came to check in on you and I see all of these signs, but I'm just going to leave and just have that in my mind. Am I going to actually do something? What kind of things you do?
If the person if they always kept their house really, really clean and then all of a sudden it was just a mess, then you would know that would be different. If the person had taken care of themselves, like their appearance, and all of a sudden they're not bathing, they're not showering, that would be different. If you notice there was no food in the house, or their utilities, sometimes older adults, their utilities will get shut off and nobody's managing them. All of a sudden Detroit Edison is shut off, or Consumers Energy, or the water bill, or taxes haven't been paid. The grass is really high. You'll notice that. Or they'll start hoarding. Hoarding is a big deal too. bringing things in. It could be they don't put it away, or they just bringing it into the house, or also trip hazards in a house. There could be things that are, stuff all over the place, and they're going to walk on it and they could fall. And then you have to really watch to make sure that they don't have weapons, guns and knives, and those kinds of things too.
I just thought about something when you mentioned trip hazards, though it just kind of triggered some other things that might be happening that are unsafe. So when you see like appliances too close to water, or they admonish you when you try to go into the kitchen or go into another room other than the room you might be sharing, or they don't open the door all the way.
Or they won't let you in.
Yeah, those are really important, I think, signs to be aware of when you start seeing things like that. When that has not been their pattern, it may be some other things going on, or they don't want to talk about the finances, or they've become very secretive and very private,
guarded with it. And also, like if you go into their house and their heat's up to 100, and their house is a mess, and maybe there's no heat in the house. Maybe the heat's gotten shut off, and like they just barely answered the door.
Yeah, those are good signs. Those are good signs to watch out for. And there's something that you can do. I know we have a lot of advocacy agencies. Detroit Area Agency on Aging, and I think there's one for. There's a suicide crisis line that you can call, the 1988 suicide line, and there's crisis for older adults. So yeah, especially you can call 911 and let them know right away they're at such risk. So we have to really keep an eye on our family and friends and our loved ones and our seniors to stop by and make sure that they're okay and they're not, even though they say they're okay, that doesn't mean anything. They can say, because they're proud. They're proud, or they need somebody to check on them. Maybe it's an underlining that they don't want to be a bother, but they would love if you did stop by. Right.
Pretty deep.
It is when you think about it. Yeah.
There's so many losses that come, the loss of themselves, and they get to where the financial burden is a big deal for the man, because he's like, he was always the provider, and he always provided the home and paid all the bills and did everything, and all of a sudden he's on secured income, the Social Security and the retirement, and that's all he's getting now. And there's not enough money to pay all those bills. And then if he's not managing those bills, and it's getting out of hand, or he's forgotten because he has dementia, or she's forgotten if it's the wife, if he has a wife, or maybe the wife has passed away, and he's trying to manage it all himself. Maybe he's never even wrote a check in his life, or maybe she's never wrote a check in her life, or paid a bill, or done any. It's hard for a lot of older adults now because everything is through ACH, which means you pay it online. They don't know how to pay bills online. Most of them write checks still. So it's we have to, as family members, we have to come in and say, can we help you with these bills, or can we help you manage them? And that's difficult because sometimes you have adult children who have a hard time dealing with it too. That's not how my mom is. That's not how my mom. They're in denial. That's not my mom didn't do that, or my mom's not acting that way. Or she's not depressed. She doesn't seem it. She's just getting older. It's you have to really look in
the things we don't want to face that we have to.
We have to face. It's a denial. So there's definitely ways to help them. Somebody would need to probably get, explain to them that they're there to help them. You can also get a POA, or you can become a durable power of attorney. You can get a guardianship of them. First step is just to check on them, though, to make sure, to see what they need. Always be there for your loved ones, because they might feel trapped or there's no way out. But maybe if you get involved, maybe they'll feel that that's not necessarily the case.
Another thing that I wanted to bring to our attention is when they make decisions, or sometimes, this is one of the things that we faced, was that there were a lot of calls and TV commercials about changing your health plans. And my mom, she bought into one of them because they were giving away some free what do we call them? The insulated socks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were giving away all these items. And so, but my mom had great insurance. And during that time of the open enrollment, she decided that she needed one of those, the whatever those socks are called, compression socks.
Compression socks.
It was compression socks. And so she called them and started asking questions. And they actually had changed her insurance over to some different. She had given them her name, and she was saying yes about those the compression socks, and they're like, well, if we send you these, then you have to change your coverage. But of course they didn't say it that way. They emphasized her getting the free gifts.
They're taking advantage of because they don't understand. They don't understand. And they're taking advantage of.
Yeah, and my mom she didn't really want to say anything about it. Mm-hmm. So she was embarrassed, and she kind of was letting it ride until she actually had to go to. It took us 6 months to get her whole insurance back in order. We actually had to wait till the next year.
Mm-hmm. But the open enrollment
mm-hmm. period. Yeah, we had to wait till the next year, and she felt really, really bad about it. And like I said, she was really embarrassed. She didn't want to talk about it. And so I noticed that, and some of her peers, they had similar experiences. So I know it's not just happening. It's not just isolated. It is a targeting one.
It is a targeting one. And I actually get phone calls myself. I don't know if you do, from people saying, I'm representing this insurance company through Medicare. Mm-hmm. So if I was a senior or somebody that didn't understand, I might think, oh, it's Medicare. I want it. And then all of a sudden they'll put them on that plan.
Yes, they will. Uh-huh. So we have to be mindful and careful about the targeting for our older adults and loved ones too, because they can get themselves into a real fix. The advance check.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where the check cashing, not
cash advance.
Cash advance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The cash advance. Those kind of quick fix things have gotten them into trouble too. Mm-hmm. Because once you start in that cycle, and if you can't manage it, it's hard to get back out. It's hard to get out of that cycle. So we have to be mindful about that too. And so just as their finances are changing, why is this not being paid? Really kind of helping them, like, well, I got in a cash advance. And so, but once you have that cash advance, if you're on a fixed income, when your payment comes, that means all of those funds have to go to repaying, and it doesn't always cover it.
Right. And then you have to rely and not have those funds again, then they do it again. Mm-hmm. So it's a vicious cycle.
It is. And they are not very compassionate about.
No, they want their money.
They want their money.
And then for the older adult male as well, is, they've been the one, as Calvin was saying, that has taken care of their kids, and they've taken care of their wives. And if their older adult kids need things, they'll go to their parents. Mm-hmm. And they feel bad. They want to help their kids. Mm-hmm. And even if they don't have it, they're going to give it to them. Yeah. Because that's one of the things. And it'll put them in a situation. Yes. And it could put them in a situation. I actually know of an older adult that actually did commit suicide. And his finances were horrible. And he was helping everybody. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't help himself. He couldn't help his family. He just felt like there was no way out. He was just digging deeper and deeper and deeper. So it was, poor guy. That was it. He just said he just didn't know. And he said his wife would be fine, but he just knew that he couldn't do it anymore. He didn't know what to do. So. Yeah.
Sobering conversations.
Yeah. It's a difficult conversation, but it's got to be had so people are aware of it. Mm-hmm. So they know the signs and the symptoms. And there's ways to prevent suicide. So we have to be crucial thinkers. Think about our loved ones and think about those warning signs and take appropriate action to follow up. Check on them. Suicidal thoughts or depression have to be taken seriously. And if you see it, do something. Speak up. Do something about your parent, your loved one, or you notice something. Passive suicide thoughts, people will think things in their head like, I'd be better off dead. They'll be better off without me. Mm-hmm. But you'll see it in different things. But then when they take action of hurting themselves, then it's even worse.
Have you noticed, I know in your work, have you noticed that they try to cover up something that really may be wrong?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay. So that's another thing to pay attention to.
Yeah, like the dementia. They'll cover up, or the spouse will cover up for the husband, or the husband will cover up for the spouse. And there's some underlying issues, and they're not managing anymore. But they don't want to they don't want to bother their children, or they don't want to bother, their anyone else, because they're trying to manage. But they're not managing anything. It's all falling apart.
Mm. Yeah, we have to be careful of the cover-ups, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, but there is ways to get help. And, like I said, the 1988 suicide and crisis line is very important to call. And don't delay. I mean, if you know someone, don't hesitate to call 911. If you know somebody that's going through it or you see it, do something about it.
Do something. Mm-hmm. Do something. That's very helpful. Mana, thank you. I know we're going to be wrapping up, so do you have any closing thoughts?
Another thing is just Medicare. As we know, Medicare is the seniors' insurance, but Medicare will pay for mental health services. So if you need help, you need a counsel, you need help with psychological services, get the counseling that you need. Get the counseling for your parents that needs, or your aunts, your uncles, your friends. Medicare will pay for it. It's awesome. There. It's there. Medicare Part A pays for it as well as Medicare Part B. So it is. There is services out there. There's free services out there. There's people to talk to. Before you go to that next step. A lot of times people do it really fast, but sometimes people think about it for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
They've been thinking about it. Or kids, a lot of times, they just do it at the spur of the moment because maybe it's a boyfriend or a relationship. Where older adults, they'll plan. Mm-hmm. They're planning it for a while.
That's important to know.
Mm-hmm. Know the signs and symptoms.
Know the signs and symptoms.
Look at what mom and dad's doing or what aunt and uncle's doing at home. And in assisted livings and nursing homes, there's some great ones out there. They're there. They're there for support. They're there to help.
I know that was one of my mother's fears, was that she would be put in a nursing home and that she wouldn't be cared for. I think she would be forgotten. And I think that's really one of my mother's biggest fears, is that she would be forgotten.
Nobody would come to see her.
Well, I don't know how she could think that, but it is a thought. It's because she talks about that. Mm-hmm. Like, don't put me in a nursing home. I'd rather die than go into a nursing home. She said that multiple times. Mm-hmm. But we, she stays with family. She moved from independent living because of some of the new habits and the new things that she needed support with. So she needed to be with family, like forgetting to take medication or taking too much medication. So some of the things that put her in harm's way. But, I mean, she's surrounded by love. She's surrounded by family all the time. In fact, she likes to have her quiet time because she has so much family around her, yeah.
Oftentimes, seniors, when they do go to assisted living or a skilled nursing home, they thrive. Because maybe they were at home by themselves, but guess what? So they think, oh, this is going to be horrible. I'm going to go to this nursing home and they're not going to take care of me. But guess what? They're going to have somebody with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all their meals, and there's going to be people coming in all the time. And there's activities and programs and doctors and nurses and people that are there and visitors. So it's even more than a lot of them would get at home where they're so lonely. So you have to think of it in that aspect.
You do.
Yeah, because there's so much more going on.
Right.
And they may find a hobby or an interest or something that they really like in that setting.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and when my mother was in independent living, she had a ball. She had a blast. It was something for her to do all the time. She still goes to visit and play bingo and watch movies, and so she's still active, very active.
So when you see a change in loss of self with somebody, do something, because the depression is there. It could be, and maybe they might not want to go to that nursing home. Maybe they would say that's what, but you never know. Mm-hmm. It might be the best place for them.
Right. So,
or that assisted living might be the best place for them, because they would be out of that lonely environment, or that unkept environment, or that unsafe environment where there's a weapon or there's a gun, or they could fall, or they could get hurt, or take a bottle of pills, in their home, and they're being checked on continuously. Where at home, maybe they're not being checked on, maybe not even once a week.
right. Yeah, that's important. That's an important decision to make. As the older adult and or the families. How can you, if you can't manage to take care of them, you find the best alternatives. I think we have to think that way too. What's the best next alternative?
And if you can't do it yourselves, there is guardians out there, that's legal guardians, that's lawyers that can help with that too. And they will help make decisions. And, sometimes it might be somebody from outside. It might not be a family. Maybe some families can't do it. Some people have their own issues and they can't manage. Maybe it'll have to be a friend or a family or even an attorney.
But there are options.
There are options.
That's important to remember. Well, as we wrap up today, I think what I would like people to leave with is that, one, that there are options. And I'm so glad you shifted the perspective, because I think some of us have that stigma about what a nursing home is, what it looks like in terms of the care. Now, we know there are some out there, but there are some many more options, and really having to sort through to find the best care facility, to find the best alternative, to find the best family member or whomever is going to lead the support for that older adult. It's important that we start to think about those things. And even while we are at this time in our lives, it may be wise for us to start planning as well. What do you think about that?
I think so too. Planning ahead is so important. Plan for your future. What do you want to be a DNR? What's your advanced directives? If your heart was to stop, would you want to be resuscitated? Do you want to have CPR? If your plan for your future as far as your wills, who's going to get, if something happened to you, would it be split between different kids or different, your whatever your assets are? Your financial, who's going to make decisions for you? Who's going to make your financial decisions? Who's going to make your health decisions? Those are things. And then, people pre-plan their funerals. And there's nothing wrong with that. Even to the point of, this is where my plot is, to this is what I want to wear, and this is the kind of funeral I want. They pre-plan them. And that makes less problems for the children.
Right.
It's not as hard on the kid, because mom already has her plan. That doesn't mean it's happening today, but she's got a plan. And that's really thinking outside the box. They're being really innovative thinkers if you think about the older adults that's planning for their own, because they're feeling they don't want to be a burden on their kids or their husband, so they're planning ahead for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. And just to know what your options are, having options and knowing where to go, especially in those times, because, you may be grieving. You may be stressed or burdened. So you want to make sure that you're having an opportunity to think in advance, because it gives you more time to think through it and not be so driven by force or emergency as it may be an urgency. So all of those things are important, whether you want to choose hospice, whether you want to be a living donor, like all of those things are really a part of this process. And to give yourself some grace. I know there are a lot of people who are fearful for having the conversation for fear that you're going to bring something on to you, that I don't want to die, so I can't talk about things that are related to death. That's a misnomer too.
It is.
So it's not that you linger on it. Planning, just like you plan for a vacation, you plan so that you know and try to cover as much of the things that are not up to chance. You want to have things that are more settled, more scheduled, more planned out, so that you have options and you have autonomy versus being forced to do something in an emergency situation. So that's another way that we can work together in advanced planning, but also for those family members who may feel that they are a burden, maybe that's another opportunity that you might want to share with them, that you're not a burden. Let's talk through this together so that you don't have this on your mind. This doesn't have to be constantly on your mind, or you're worried about this or you're worried about that. Let's make sure that there's a plan. So as we are growing older, as we are making these transitions, that we can make sure that we're making sure that you're not a burden. Here's some ways that you can enhance that and make sure that it's not, and that you don't feel that way, and that I don't feel that way.
Definitely. That's stuff. And, life insurance, too. Planning ahead. That's another area. A lot of people don't plan ahead well with life insurance. Making sure that their loved ones are cared for when they're no longer here. But yet, sometimes it's a taboo subject. Some husbands and wives are like, oh, I don't want to buy that life insurance because, that means, or I'm not getting that life insurance on you or on me because that means, are you going to leave me? Because people talk about that. You hear the conversations. Oh, I took out that big life insurance policy on you. Oh, so you're going to kill me off? I mean, I've heard people say that.
Right.
Oh, you took out $500,000 or $100,000, so you want me gone? I mean, you hear those conversations.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the case. It's, have those conversations before it's too late, and they can be well prepared.
Yes. Well, I think we are at our close. Monique, how about you? Did you have anything that you wanted to share or add?
No, it was very helpful listening to that. I do have an older parent, and I try to keep him active, make sure he's not, because my dad was very active. I mean, he worked until he was 91.
Wow.
So, that was a big change when he had to, not work anymore. So we, try to make sure he's okay and everything.
So you have a family that checks in
and everything like
right.
that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's very real. It's very real that to have this. It happens every day, and every day we're growing older. Every day we have the opportunity. I like to call it the reset. We have an opportunity reset. So if your loved one may have been upset with you yesterday, you can reset and try again tomorrow.
Tomorrow is even another moment. It could be just living in that moment. Maybe, like you said, the reset. If you had a bad day, start it over tomorrow.
Start it over. So, because I know, you can have a disagreement with the parent or loved one, and people will separate for them for months and weeks and years.
It's unbelievable. But
Yes.
it happens all the time.
It does, but we cannot continue to let that happen and assume that somebody else is going to do something about it. You have to reset. You have to forgive.
You have to forgive. And then, a lot of times adult children have had a hard life with their parents. Maybe their parents were difficult and their parents were challenging as kids and they haven't forgiven them. But like you said, you've got to forgive.
You got to forgive. You got to forgive because the forgiveness, you think it's for the other person. No, the forgiveness is for you. It's for you.
It is.
Well,
Because if something did happen to them later on, then you would say, well, I wish I'd have did this differently.
Right. Yeah.
Why
I
didn't
would
I
have,
do
could
it
have,
this-
should have.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. I could have did that differently. I should have forgave quicker when they're no longer here.
Yep. And we don't need that.
No.
You don't need to carry that into your next level of your journey.
So be careful with your loved ones. Make sure that you see if there's weapons in the house. Make sure that there's not pills that they can access. Make sure that there's not knives, guns, things around that they could hurt themselves, especially if they're going through challenges. Lock those things up. Be aware that they're there.
Absolutely. Well, this is Put Your Family First podcast. You have attended with Heather Hedheru, and you can reach me at www.yourinspiredwithad.journey.com, or you can reach me by phone at 313-759-7855, and you can also reach us at EMIWorld.com. You can find us at EMIYTV on YouTube and on most social media platforms. Mana, how can they find you?
They can find me at Mana Hanson Hill at 248-619-5874, or mhanson10@davenport.edu.
Well, thank you, Monique. Thank you for your help and your expertise today as we continue this sobering subject and speaking with elders. We'll see Mana next month, the month of July.
Yes.
Yes, we're looking forward to it. So on behalf of Calvin T. Mann, one of our hosts, and our sponsors, Podcastic, we thank you for joining us today and look forward to our next exciting episode.
Thank you. All right.
Hey, have you heard about Encourage Me, I'm Young Smash Suicide campaign?
No, I have not. What is it about?
They're raising awareness about boys in suicide age 5 to 11.
Boys 5 to 11. What do you mean?
We have to share the information so parents know to look out for their sons.
So you are saying, to be clear, that black boys 5 to 11 are dying by suicide?
I am saying males from 5 to 80 are number one. They're just focusing on the prevention, which starts at age 5.
We must share this so parents can get help.
Here's how you can get help. Call 988 immediately. Visit cnshealthcare.org for mental health care services. Visit EMIYTV.com to get involved. Encourage Me, I'm Young.
You read the paper, it makes you cry. So many bad things happening that you can't deny. You've got to do more than just pray. We should work hard, people, each and every day.
Love a change, love a change, love a do, yeah, love a do. Exactly what you wanted to. Yes, it will. Yes, live yours. Live your life authentic. Make it authentic as possible. Be true. Keep it 100. No gimmick. Yep. Breathe in. Don't doubt. Don't doubt. Breathe out. Let it out. Good vibes. Gotta keep the vibes going. Life's short. Short as possible. Do good. Do your best. Love God. Love it up, love it up. We stood. Yeah, we did. Shit did.
Satisfaction hadn't happened in the world, losing its traction. They say, turn down your passion, but that's why we scrapping. Dragging, pulling, most in the same direction. Ain't no hating, true pictures, shaking up the resurrection. Total misconception, how you move. I choose love, 10 commandments, follow the rules. God got me and I know it. In fact, he always show it. See, yeah, I saw it. Don't matter rich or poor. Yeah, I'm from the 8 township, Detroit City. They got my back and I'm bringing the help. Women need help in the suburbs, help in the hood, help in rural areas, the sticks in the wood. We need help in the hospitals, help the high school. I'm serious to say, we need help for these fools. We need help for the leadership. Do your job, lead. Turn up the love and turn down the greed. We need help